Dive into a heartbreaking yet inspiring journey on True Reddit Reads, where real-life drama unfolds in raw detail. In this episode of True Reddit Stories, we follow Jake's descent into a brutal workout nightmare at the hands of his ex, 1,000 burpees, sleepless nights, haunted by perfectionism, and a father's desperate fight to save his son from self-destruction. From the humiliating challenge on the court to the chilling discovery of a family secret, you'll witness each step of Jake's battle for dignity and the devastating cost of proving you're not weak. Watch how one family turned tragedy into triumph, creating a legacy fund and a network of support that now protects hundreds of students facing emotional abuse. This is more than Reddit drama, it's a powerful testament to resilience, love, and community. Chapter 1, Burpees of Breakdown. I clearly remember that afternoon when my son Jake burst through the front door and collapsed onto the sofa, his eyes rimmed with red. All because of a single slice of birthday cake his ex-girlfriend Sarah had forced him to do 1,000 burpees. I hit play on the recording of Sarah proudly declaring, "Let him fall flat, I love breaking him," and erupting into raucous laughter. When I asked if she felt any guilt, Sarah simply shrugged. At least I upgraded him. I just stood there watching her toy with my boy like he was nothing, then turned and walked away. 4 months have passed since that fateful day, but its aftermath still weighs on my mind. This morning, Sarah's phone was blinking with 47 missed calls from the psychologist she's supposed to see proof that something serious was brewing. Jake got home. First, tossed his basketball onto the balcony, then retreated to his room. I knew he wanted to dodge questions. "Dad, please don't come in." Instead of knocking, I silently resolved to make him a fresh omelet the next morning. But when I went to the kitchen, he wasn't there. The sound of labored breathing drew me out back to the little storage shed. I found him in a push-up position, sweat streaming down his face. He'd just counted to 65 when he noticed me standing there. "Dad, we need to talk," he said, sitting up, his hands still trembling. His voice hitched. "At basketball practice, Sarah took my favorite hoodie and handed it to Trevor, the team captain, then looked at me like I was a joke. Now it fits the bigger meat." The whole team cracked up. I stared into his eyes, expecting the usual flash of hurt or bewilderment you see in a young guy who's been dumped. Instead, I saw a look like a powder keg about to blow. "Dad, I'm sick of being the fat kid everyone laughs at. I'm going to change everything." Those words echoed in my head like a curse. At first, I thought immersing himself in exercise might help. "Go ahead and work out, you'll feel better," I told him. But in just 2 weeks, Jake had lost over 20 pounds. His homeroom teacher called to say he'd been dozing off every first period. He showed me his alarm schedule, 4:00 a.m. every day, running before his 5:00 a.m. gym session. "Success demands sacrifice," he repeated like a mantra. Everything escalated fast. I caught him doing 1,000 burpees at midnight just because his class had birthday cake. When his mother came over with lasagna, he sat clutched to a Tupperware container, whispering, "I can't eat a real family dinner anymore." I hid the ache in my chest and simply patted his shoulder. Then in a moment of desperation, Jake blurted out, "Did you know Mom made me sneak behind her back at school so no one knew we were dating?" His voice broke. "She said I deserved to be loved, but that was a lie." On the drive home, I realized this was more than weight gain or loss. Sarah had definitely planted a self-destructive seed in his head until he no longer recognized his own worth. In that moment, I vowed I have to save Jake before it's too late. And that marked the beginning of a long, painful, and tense journey, one in which a father must confront the terror of losing his child to the influence of a girl he once dismissed as just another schoolyard crush. But as I looked at him gasping on that cold, hard floor, I knew I could not back down. Chapter 1 closes under a heavy sky, opening the door to a battle our family will never forget. Chapter 2, stepping into a personal battle. I hadn't even processed the shock of seeing Jake struggle through 65 push-ups before he launched himself into his life-changing journey. The very next morning, when I stepped into the kitchen, I found nothing but cracked eggshells and wilted greens, proof he'd already eaten breakfast. Whereas I usually had to call him 3 times to drag him out of bed, now Jake was awake before his alarm even rang. "Dad, I'm off," he said, grabbing his water bottle and those worn-out sneakers, then bolted out the door. I watched his figure fade down our quiet country lane, worry knotting in my chest. In just a few days, he'd dropped nearly 10 pounds, his face hollowed, yet his eyes burned with determination. Each morning before dawn even crept over the horizon, I'd hear his slow footsteps across the wooden floor, then the rattle of the bicycle as he pedaled toward the empty courts. There he'd sprint drills, contra lunges, and pull-ups until sweat poured off him. At dinner that evening, I asked gently, "Are you tired? Maybe you should rest a bit." Jake's reply was cold. "Successful people never quit, Dad. I still have more goals to hit." His words cut me deeper than I expected. He ate a few mouthfuls of plain rice, then retreated to the corner of the room, where his light dumbbells waited. After his workout, he'd stand before the mirror, rotating slowly, inspecting every muscle as though grading his progress. 2 weeks in his lips had thinned his cheeks, hollowed. His PE teacher called to say he was nodding off during first period. Jake didn't defend himself. He just showed me his alarm schedule every day at exactly 400 a.m. The phone would buzz, and he'd leap out of bed to run. Then one afternoon, I noticed his favorite hoodie left abandoned on the sofa. He used to wear it everywhere. When I asked, "Why didn't you bring that hoodie to practice?" he bit out, "That hoodie. It makes me feel weak now, Dad." "You get it?" I sighed, realizing he was wrestling with more than just weight loss. It wasn't only a fierce determination, it was a crushing need to prove himself. With every push-up, every jump, every drop of sweat, he was paying in pain and insecurity. The breaking point came when Grandma showed up with lasagna. Jake sat hunched over, clutching a Tupperware box, shaking his head. "I can't eat that." Grandma's eyes brimmed. I squeezed Jake's hand. "Come on, Jake, just one bite. It'll make her so happy." He turned his eyes rimmed red. "I can't let Mom or Sarah call me weak." Dad. That confession felt like a knife to my heart. I realized Sarah had planted a twisted obsession in his mind he had to prove to the world he would never break. What began as a bid to rebuild confidence had morphed into a fight for survival, one where Jake was slowly destroying himself. That night, I crept into his room and saw him scribbling in his journal by lamplight. The first line I spotted read, "You don't understand, Dad. I need to become a champion, not the kid everyone looks down on." I closed the notebook quickly, my heart aching. Chapter 3. Secrets from the Past. One late weekend afternoon, as the sun softened into shade, I decided to delve deeper into my son's transformation. I tiptoed into Jake's room, the air still heavy with the scent of sweat, the pull-up bar and weight plates coated in dust. Training logs lay scattered in a water bottle etched with "No strength. Comes easy, sat abandoned." I edged toward the desk by the window and flipped through the journal entries he'd accidentally left out the night before. Suddenly, my fingers brushed against an old leather-bound notebook, its cover cracked and worn. This wasn't Jake's current diary, but someone else's, a faded name scrawled across the front trang. The handwriting matched the inscription inside Jake's 10th birthday card. A blurred letter slipped out. "My beloved son, I want you to know I'm always with you even when I can't be here." My heart froze when I realized this was the farewell note from Jake's late mother, the woman who'd succumbed to an eating disorder. She had once been the neighborhood's celebrated bodybuilder, ruthlessly counting every calorie to chase a perfect physique. The pages that followed weren't words of encouragement, but haunting records. Detailed food logs, escalating into brutal fasting when the pressure became too much. One entry in particular made me tremble. "March 12th, I collapsed after dinner. You found me unconscious in the kitchen. I'm ashamed I couldn't protect you from my own demons. You are perfect, just as I always wanted. Don't let anyone destroy you." I was stunned. Jake's mother had endured her own horrors in silence, pouring her final agony onto the page so that her son would smile even after she was gone. Now Jake was unknowingly reenacting his mother's tragedy, believing her last words were somehow untrue, forcing himself into an endless loop of torment. Years of restraint snapped and I wept. Sitting beside that journal, my chest tightened. My boy was not just an athletic kid wanting to look better. He was carrying the weight of a trauma he thought he had to honor by destroying himself. I knew that without prompt intervention, Jake would follow his mother's fatal path. The next morning, I gently placed the leather notebook and letter on his breakfast table and called him downstairs. Jake, your mother left these for you. Please read them. He sat in silence as he read, no arguments, no denial, just the rustle of paper and his ragged breaths. When he finally looked up, his eyes were wet. She went through what I'm going through now. I sat beside him and pulled him into my arms. Your mother and I both tried to shield you, but she was gone. It was too late for her to protect you. I'm here now, and I won't let you destroy yourself. Jake's sobs broke the heavy air, but for the first time it felt like relief. We weren't just battling workout goals or Sarah's cruelty anymore. We were sharing a wound that bridged past and present of father and son united by love and loss. That evening, I called Dr. Liam Jake's psychologist to request an urgent appointment. I told him about the journal, the hidden pressure weighing on my son. Within hours, our sessions were moved up, and Jake's therapy shifted into a journey not only to mend his mind, but to heal our family's deepest scar. Chapter 4, Therapy and the Quiet Moments. The next morning, Jake and I sat together in Dr. Liam's waiting room, our hearts heavy with hope for a miracle. Jake's fingers traced the worn leather of his mother's journal as he glanced around uncertain. When our turn came, we entered a warm, softly lit office, hung with landscape paintings, an atmosphere of calm trust. Dr. Liam, with gentle eyes and a reassuring smile, invited Jake to take the blue armchair. Jake looked to me, nodded, then began to share everything: the humiliation on the court, the brutal workouts, the fear that gripped him each time he looked in the mirror. I held his hand, and together we poured out our truths. There was no instant breakthrough in that first session, only the stillness we so desperately needed. When Dr. Liam asked, "Can you remember something joyful from before Sarah appeared?" Jake closed his eyes and spoke of his first goal and the roar of cheers that followed. I saw tears well in his eyes, that bright memory tearing through the darkness he'd been living in. In the weeks that followed, Jake and I carved out time each morning just for us. Rather than forcing sprints, he chose gentler activities: stretching yoga, leisurely swims, long walks beneath the trees. Every evening we read together from his mother's journal, and from the blank pages he'd started filling with childhood dreams. Slowly, Jake opened up about his loneliness, the crushing pressure to become someone else. I reminded him, I love you for who you are, not for how strong or thin you become. Those words landed like a balm on his wounded heart. Still, the peace often flickered. One afternoon, during a light workout, Jake broke down in tears. "Dad, I'm scared I'll fall again." I held him close and whispered, "Falling isn't the end. What matters is that we rise again together." The shock at Miller Lake. In the early days after therapy, I thought we'd turned a corner. Jake slept better, ate more regularly, and even joined me in looking at his mother's photos on the wall. But about 3 weeks later, the first faint signs of relapse appeared. He grew evasive whenever I asked, "How are you feeling today?" and suddenly doubled his workouts. One early morning, I opened the front door to find his bicycle still in the yard, but no Jake. In the kitchen, the cereal box was untouched, with only his water bottle neatly set beside it. A chill ran through me. I sprinted to the back garden and caught a faint sound drifting across Miller Lake near our home. Still in my slippers, I dashed to the lake's edge, dawn's pale light glittering on the water. There I saw him swimming furiously, lips blue in the cold, pushing himself as if to prove I will never be weak. Every stroke and kick looked harder than the last. I shouted, "Jake, get out of the water right now," but he didn't stop. His gym jacket thrown over his swimsuit was soaked through. On his third face-down dip in the 40-degree water panic overtook me. I plunged in and dragged him ashore. He lay on the pebbles, shivering uncontrollably, and I fumbled for my phone to call an ambulance. In the back of the ambulance, he murmured, "Tell Sarah. Tell her I'm not weak." Cold sweat and lake water dripped from his hair as he tested his own limits. When the paramedic strapped on a warming blanket and readied an IV line, he protested, "Don't warm me up. I don't want to get fat." My heart sank. My worst fear, him harming his body, was a reality. In the ER, he lay motionless, body stiff, with hypothermia and exhaustion. Doctors fitted him with warming tubes and a feeding line while nurses monitored his vitals. When he finally woke, he looked at me with exhaustion and anger mingled in his eyes. I'm sorry, Dad. I couldn't let Sarah see me as weak." His voice cracked. I gripped his hand and vowed, "You never have to prove that to anyone, do you understand?" In that moment, I knew we'd hit a dangerous limit. His physical trauma was a stark reflection of his mental anguish. To save him from himself, we needed more than therapy sessions. We needed a steadfast, family-backed plan to shield Jake from the perfectionist nightmare that was tearing him apart. Chapter 6. A Tragic End. When I stepped into that sterile hospital room, it felt as though my heart froze with each footstep. Jake lay motionless on the bed, his frame so hollow I barely recognized him. Dr. Palmer pulled me aside in a whisper. "You need to prepare yourself. Your son's heart stopped twice before we got it beating again." Those words drove me straight to the edge of my worst nightmare. I sat next to his bed and took his frail hand in mine. The harsh overhead light pooled across his gaunt face, the pale blue veins beneath his skin like frozen rivers. Tubes fed him nutrients, a ventilator helped him breathe, and monitors tracked every beat of a heart that was barely holding on. When Jake's eyelids fluttered open, his first question wasn't panic or pain. It was a whisper. "Dad, am I thin enough now?" His voice trembled, ragged from the struggle to breathe. I gripped his hand tighter and spoke the only words I could. "You are perfect, son. I'm so sorry I let this happen." His features softened as though soothed by a final lullaby. Moments later, Dr. Palmer ushered me into the hallway. "He's still unconscious," he said gravely, "and his heart may not withstand another episode." I returned to his side to find Sarah slipping through the doorway like a phantom, still wearing Jake's gym hoodie, sodden with dark, dried water stains. Her eyes were hollow. Her voice choked as she murmured, "He's everything to me." But there was something flickering in her gaze that sent a chill through me. Jake stirred, caught sight of Sarah, and cracked a hollow smile, not one of relief or joy, but of madness. "Of course. You had to wear it." He rasped, laughter breaking out like a cry. "You upgraded me." The words fell like a merciless blow. His smile faded, his pulse slowed. Dr. Palmer rushed in with a stabilizing injection. The monitor dipped to 40 beats per minute, a razor's edge between life and death. Jake slipped back into unconsciousness, his eyes half-lidded in a fading dream. I rose to my feet, transfixed by Sarah retreating into the harsh corridor, light tears streaming down her cheeks. Tears not wholly of regret. Leaning close, she whispered into my ear, "He wanted to prove himself. I gave him that chance. He should be grateful." Then she turned and walked away into the cold silence. Moments later, Dr. Palmer reappeared, his face etched with sorrow. "You should go in now. His heart has just stopped for a third time." I sank to my knees at Jake's bedside, pressing my hand to his chest, as if I could still feel that final flutter. In the hush of the monitors, I heard his faintest breath, then the softest whisper that, "I'm sorry, I didn't listen to Mom." And then nothing. The monitor's single red dot blinked once, then went dark. I collapsed beside him, unable to cry out as the alarm blared its silent warning. My son, the boy who once lit up basketball courts with his passion and beamed smiles, was gone, claimed by the very drive to prove his worth. The last images haunt me still. The blinking monitors, Dr. Palmer's tears, Sarah's receding silhouette. That night, I did not go home. I sat alone in the hospital corridor, clutching Jake's crumpled hoodie, its fabric both warm and unbearably cold. Chapter 7: Unmasking the Funeral Farce. I still remember the moment I opened the funeral home window and saw Sarah wrapped in Jake's hoodie like a perverse badge, standing in the center of a hushed crowd, tears streaming as she embraced her friends one by one. Around her, mourners offered condolences, snapped photos, while Sarah stood, quietly, performing. My heart roiled with rage and grief. I drew a steadying breath, stepped out of the dark hallway, and strode toward the funeral parlor's entrance. My pulse thundered when Sarah's eyes flickered with recognition. She offered me a damp, practiced smile, then pressed her trembling hands against her mourning veil, feigning profound sorrow. I asked calmly, though my voice trembled, "Give me back my son's hoodie." Sarah recoiled, clutching the fabric to her chest. She wailed, "This is all I have left of him. I can't." I said nothing further, raised my hand, and tapped the hoodie's front lightly. She flinched, hair swinging back, her tears suddenly sliding free. There was a flash of anger in Sarah's eyes, then it vanished, leaving a look of perverse satisfaction. I pulled the hoodie from her grasp and felt the faded ketchup stain remnant of the dinner spilled 3 nights before Jake went into the lake. Several parents edged away, uneasy. Trevor, the basketball captain and now Sarah's boyfriend, stepped forward and held out a hand. "Sir, you should leave her be." I fixed him with a cold stare. "Let me do what I must." I turned and walked swiftly to my car. Behind me, Sarah's voice rose. "You monster." Her sob echoed in the scented haze of incense and whispered gossip, but I did not look back. That night, I sat at my computer and watched the funeral footage Sarah had posted on Instagram. Her caption read, "R.I.P. Jake, he was so sweet." My heart pounded as I watched her fake smiles, the tilts of her head, the stray hair she tucked behind her ear. I hit download, ready for the next step, exposing the truth. The wheels began to turn. The next morning, I met with Coach Miller, who had once missed Sarah and Trevor's plotting to humiliate Jake in the empty gym. He handed me the security camera recording clear audio of Sarah giving directions, Trevor carrying them out, and the others laughing in approval. I didn't blast it on Facebook. Instead, I saved it all into a folder, marked evidence, and sent copies to the school board and the local news station. Words alone were no longer enough. I needed irrefutable video and audio proof. Other parents quietly approached me, sharing messages from their own children, David, Kevin, Liam, each once targeted by Sarah. They described how she manipulated their insecurities into her own trophies. Only then did I realize Sarah's funeral performance was a cunning curtain drawn to hide her crimes. Now it was time to tear it down. I quietly passed the evidence to the police and our family attorney. By day's end, I sat alone in an empty room, cradling the hoodie that had become a grim exhibit. In my mind, I heard Jake's voice. "Dad, don't let my death be meaningless." I nodded to the empty air, vowing that this tragic loss would not become fodder for a monster's twisted game. Chapter 8: A Protective Legacy for Jake. After I delivered all the evidence to the school board and police, the atmosphere at school shifted overnight. Teachers who once ignored the whispers now spoke up confidently. Parents previously silent began swapping Sarah's audio messages, text threads, and even Coach Miller's video clip. I overheard them discussing Sarah with no hint of her being present, a relief I can hardly describe. The administration called an emergency meeting and announced new measures. 1. All parental complaints must be accompanied by clear evidence. 2. Faculty may immediately suspend any harassing parent pending verification. 3. A safety network of parents, teachers, and health staff was established to support students facing mental health challenges. I was invited to speak, sharing Jake's story candidly and exposing the darkness Sarah had sown. The room erupted in applause, not just for me, but for the awakening of the entire community. Simultaneously, I launched the Jake's Legacy Fund, a scholarship for any student who has endured emotional abuse or champions mental health awareness. Seeded by contributions from our family and other parents, the scholarship bore my son's name. Seeing his name on that list tightened my chest. Yet I knew it was the most meaningful way to transform tragedy into a beacon for others. Every week, we held a parent-child gathering called the Circle of Safety. Each Saturday morning, families came together for light exercise, sharing feelings and experiences. Though my son was gone, he was spoken of as the thread binding us all. At one gathering, I told the group Jake would be proud to know we're not just stopping the bullies, we're building a haven for every child. Sarah disappeared from campus once a restraining order barred her entry. She underwent mandatory psychological treatment and was forced to issue a public apology to parents. No one has reported seeing her return. Now, whenever I walk onto the basketball court at dusk and see children laughing and playing, I think of Jake's triumphant smile when he scored his first goal. Though he's no longer here, his legacy lives on through school policies, the scholarship fund, and the friendships forged by families who refuse to stand by silently. Chapter 9. A New Light for the Future. A year has passed since Jake's final goodbye, yet what he left behind has become a solid foundation. Every new school year, I still walk through the familiar gates of that school, now alive with children's laughter and with no trace of any malicious intruder. Our circle of safety has now expanded to 3 neighboring schools, involving more than 100 families. Saturday morning gatherings now include not only yoga and group walks, but also an emotional sharing club, where students can confide in one another under the guidance of a mental health professional. I'll never forget the eager eyes of the kids who hesitated no more, finding the courage to speak their hearts, a tremendous leap from where we started. The Jake's Legacy Fund has awarded 15 scholarships to students suffering from emotional bullying or crippling pressure to perform. Each scholarship includes free therapy sessions and involvement in our Strength of the Soul Club. Watching their beaming faces after treatment, I understand pain may be born of tragedy, but it is compassion and community that give hope wings. Now and then I visit my son's small gravesite place, a bouquet of sunflowers, his favorite, and whisper, "You've fulfilled your mission, my boy. This community is stronger now, and your tears were never in vain." As the sunset bathes the lawn in golden light, it feels like a promise of warmer days ahead. Though challenges remain, I believe that when each person dares to speak up and every child is protected, no one need face darkness alone. Jake may be gone, but the light he ignited continues to guide countless young souls home to peace. Thank you for sticking with Jake's journey from heartbreaking loss to a legacy that's changing lives. Behind every bright smile of a Jake's Legacy Scholarship recipient and every circle of safety gathering lies the power of sharing protection and believing in one another. If you found this video meaningful, please like, share, and subscribe to True Reddit Reads so you never miss another shocking True Reddit story. I'll see you next time, because every story deserves to be heard.